Britt Cohen and ABC News as we get going this Monday morning. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. More on that crash in the mountains in the northwest part of Iran. We'll talk about the Iranian president, why he was also known as the Butcher. This guy was a piece of work. We'll tell you more about that as well as who else was on that in that crash. Also, Joe Biden on his way to New Hampshire tomorrow. He seemed to all of a sudden, after the primary and blowing it off for 2 years, it seems like Joe Biden has rediscovered the map in New Hampshire, how to come here more often. Maybe a sign of a little concern on how this, because you would think this state would be in the blue bag for Biden, but we'll have more on that. Also, as we start the morning, not a bad looking day. You're going to see some sun popping in and out, and temperatures start to warm up. And on Wednesday, as we head into Memorial Day weekend, on Wednesday, we're going to have highs up near 90. That's right. We're not talking Vero Beach, Florida. We're talking here. Temperatures. I know. It's going to be. That's rather. Tomorrow's going to be in the 80s, J Dog, and then Wednesday gets even warmer. Hope you had a good weekend, whatever you were doing. And this is, of course, Good Morning New Hampshire. Good morning up into Maine. Good morning nationally. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the pulse of an H. I'm going to start off with Paul Steinhauser with a live report. He reports nationally for Fox News and our, of course, Good Morning New Hampshire 6-hour studios. Paul, President Biden seems to have discovered a map back to New Hampshire. He's come here a few times all of a sudden, including the First Lady. He'll be in Merrimack tomorrow. Ah, ah, ah. Paul, these trips, of course, have to be planned, well orchestrated. There's security concerns, logistical. It's interesting. I look at New Hampshire, Paul, and I'm trying to peel the onion back a little bit because right after the president's State of the Union, he went to some select swing states, and then all of a sudden he shows up here, and then next week the First Lady Joe Biden comes here. Now he's back here. You would think New Hampshire is solidly in the Biden bag this fall in terms of a blue bag for Biden. Why all of a sudden the sudden love fest after 2 years of blowing off New Hampshire and saying it wasn't diverse enough? Yesterday he gives a speech trying to, I think, placate to a part of the voting bloc he may be losing to Trump. Is this a little disingenuous, this, all of a sudden, this, sudden affection for New Hampshire, or is it a sign that even New Hampshire's in play? It's nice to be loved all of a sudden again by Joe Biden and the DNC and the Democrats in the White House. All right, thank you, Paul. Paul Steinhaus reports nationally for Fox News and for, our show here, of course, Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. We're gonna come back in the next segment, tell you a little bit about the Iranian president, Raisi, and, who he was, what he thought about women, and what they could wear in his country, what he would do to those who did not. He was known as the Butcher of Tehran. We'll tell you why in the next segment. It kind of matters a little bit. Definitely a hardliner in the Tehran regime. What does it mean going forward? Because you have the situation still with Israel and Hamas. We'll have much more on that in a little bit. But it is the week before Memorial Day. Hard to believe. Hard to believe we're going to see a big warm up with the weather. Just another comment on the politics of this run up to the presidential election less than 6 months from now in this November. Michael Cohen back in a Manhattan courtroom because they can't have trials or any court proceedings in New York without Trump or Michael Cohen or someone around Trump in there. Cohen going to be back to testify. Prosecution set to wrap up or arrest pretty soon here, and then the defense will take over, I guess, and then eventually this trial will be over. What's interesting about all this, all the hoopla, Stormy Daniels, the hush money, all this stuff, I don't think it's going to have any political consequence on the outcome in November. Again, it's rather bizarre. It's just the commonsensical side of me. It's rather bizarre. The people that just despise and detest Donald Trump, that would be the Manhattan DA, the Attorney General in New York. They can't stand Trump. And yet they bring all these cases against him, think it's going to hurt him. And all it does is solidify his base, empowers and emboldens him to work even harder. I don't think I don't think it hurts Trump at all. I think the people they've already decided what they think about Trump, for good, better, or worse in terms of what they're going to do this fall. And these trials continue. And after all this, I don't know what they do other than probably make a lot of money for lawyers, right? Lawyers, they benefit on all this stuff. So we'll see where all this goes. Coming up a little bit later on, I'm noticing you're starting to see the gas prices come down a little bit. Doug Tengton with our World Market Advisors will weigh in. We'll also have some good news at the end of the show this morning. We always do that with Tom Raffio, President CEO of Northeast Delta Dental and Delta Dental Radio, and he's always out there on the weekend, so I love it. He culls together all these good news stories that we hear about, and he'll be joining us. We have a busy week for you this week. I just want to preview it because we had a busy week last week with our Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count. And of course, our sister stations up in Maine had a busy weekend, J Dog. They were busy up there, right? What, free beer and wings or something? I don't know. What's better than that, right? Hot wings and free beer. Anyway, yeah, the show. And that was going on. But this week, this show, my show, J Dog, Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an Age. This Thursday, we're going to be live at Auto Fair Honda in Manchester. They're opening up this is pretty cool, a big new walking trail connection from Auto Fair Honda in Manchester. A big walking trail section. We'll hear from some of that as well as all the fun stuff as we go into Memorial Day weekend. And then on Friday, one of my favorites, and I went down there Saturday and I think it was Saturday. Yeah, Saturday afternoon. Had a little chowder, some oyster stew, actually, a cup of oyster stew from Francesca at Gino's. Gino's right down on Mechanic Street in Portsmouth, right in the heart, right below Strawberry Bank, Prescott Park, right down there by the bridge over to Pierce Island, and right near all the fun stuff in Portsmouth. We're going to be there live Friday at Gino's 9 to noon, kicking off the Memorial Day weekend. Someone's got to do a show down in the ocean with the lobster boats coming in. Of course, I love it at Gino's. The lobster boats, she buys her lobster from a couple of local lobstermen, and each morning or each day she gets a fresh batch, a new brand, fresh lobster to make up the lobster rolls. But her soups and chowders are outstanding and historic. The recipe I had on Saturday, she told me, goes back to like the 1950s. The Isles of Shoals, her mother, Evelyn, had gotten Marconi had gotten a great recipe out there. So great chowders, great fun. But if you want to come by on Friday towards the noon hour, 11 o'clock, come on by and say hi at Gino's this Friday. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an Age. We'll come back. We'll tell you why the Iranian president who crashed in that sort of rural region of the mountains with some of his entourage from Tehran was known as the Butcher. We'll come back with that on The Pulse of an Age in a moment. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Geez, looking at the schedule this summer, J Dog. Yeah, I think I'm on the road more than I'm in the studio. Two- How do you really feel? Busy week last week. That's all, J Dog. We have a busy week. A couple of live shows Thursday and Friday, Manchester and Portsmouth this week before we go into Memorial Day weekend. And then in June, we have a bunch of shows at Goodhue Boat Company, their marinas around our listening region, and some fun stuff, and Airfield Cafe in Hampton. I got to sort all this out, but it's fun. Good stuff. Always fun to be out there. I'll come back to the hypocrisy of Joe Biden coming to New Hampshire tomorrow. I guess, just a sign that even New Hampshire's in play. But this story about coming out of Tehran, the 63-year-old president, he was killed in that chopper crash in a rural mountainous region, and he was known as the Butcher of Tehran. And he was quite a piece of work. 63 years old. He was a hardline protege of the country's supreme leader, nicknamed the Butcher of Tehran for his role in overseeing the mass executions of thousands in the late 1980s. He led the country under the Ayatollah, and as they tried to, it's not tried, they went ahead and enriched uranium near weapons grade levels. He, of course, was behind the recent drone, that Iron Shield. Israel and the U.S. and allies able to stop the missile attack. His sudden death, along with Iran's foreign minister and other officials, comes as really the leaders in Tehran deal with a very volatile world right now. It's going to be interesting not to. In this kind of situation, it's probably like organized crime, the succession of power. I mean that sincerely. It's pretty much up to the Ayatollah in the hardline regime. But this guy was the hardline, and we'll see. Known as the Butcher. It's funny too. Not funny. It's kind of pathetic actually. Um, when people look at the well, let's just sort of call it what it is. Okay, so you have a lot of unrest and how do I say this? A lot of agitated protest, mainly among or on college campuses for the last several weeks or post October 7th. The Hamas, speaking of Butcher, the attack on Israel and then the subsequent Israel going into Gaza and going after Hamas, including up into even into Rafah most recently to kind of get the last members of the terrorist organization known as Hamas. So you have all these protests going on under the auspices of pro-Palestinian or pro-Palestine peace in Gaza, but they've become downright anti-Israel. But the whole point I want to make on the irony of this is this guy who just died in this, and Israel has already come out saying they had nothing to do with the crash. I guess it was some bad weather. It was just, looked like just basically a helicopter crash in a mountainous region. It had nothing to do with the death of the butcher, the butcher of Tehran. They said, making a clear statement there. But you look at all the protests and all that, and who's behind Hamas, who funds Hamas, who pays for Hamas, who bankrolls Hamas, and also Hezbollah and the proxy terrorist organizations in Syria. It's all out of Tehran. It's all out of Tehran. Tehran. This guy who died in this crash, and the leaders in Tehran, their number one mission is to obliterate, to annihilate, to eliminate Israel. That's clear. They're very open about that. They want to just wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And then, of course, that's the number one covenant of Hamas. So it's just kind of ironic that a lot of the people who are protesting, for peace in Gaza, which I think we all can understand. At some point you want peace. In fact, one of the members of Netanyahu's cabinet, if you will, or government, are now saying they want to see a post conflict in Gaza or war in Gaza blueprint on what it's going to look like. But it's just interesting the role Tehran plays in terrorism in the world is undisputed. It's just that's what their goal is to basically, if they could, they would annihilate us. I hope you know that. I know a lot of people don't know that, but if they could, they would annihilate the United States. But Tehran is behind a lot of stuff in terms of the world's the butcher. Again, very appropriate nickname he was known for. And the other thing too, I don't understand why we don't see more, how do I say this, more people speaking up here. The people that seem to indirectly think that Tehran's a good organization, or Hamas is I saw this, one of the college protesters, Hamas is a peace-driven organization. Oh my goodness. By the way, Hamas is the leading political power, if you will, in Gaza for Palestinians. That's their number one. There are other, and of course, you remember the PLO, Yasser Arafat, years ago, but Hamas has sort of taken over, more of a hardline terrorist organization funded by Tehran. But you look at this guy who just died in this plane crash, the president, um, uh, known as the Butcher of Tehran. You just look at how he was. There was a famous case of a young Iranian woman who pushed the dress code a little too much, and again, he cracked down, and that's when literally heads, are taken off. Just kills people. So women and children are treated just so terribly and backwards in Tehran. It's unbelievable. So not a good guy, by the way, who just died. You don't want to pounce on the dead, but not a good guy. 63-year-old, known as the Butcher of Tehran. I wanted to give you a little context because I'm not sure all the national media will on his background. All right, some of the other news talk. So Joe Biden on his way to New Hampshire. I guess we just heard from Paul Steinhauser, reports nationally for Fox News and us in the morning live a few moments ago. I guess the White House has changed the trip and plan from Merrimack now to Nashua. Tomorrow, the president coming to Nashua. And again, yes, this presidential election is well underway, but I just think it's worth pointing out again that this president and this White House and the DNC basically chose not to take part in New Hampshire's first in the nation presidential primary. And why did they not want to take part as they reshape sort of the nomination process in early states, taking them out? Why did they do that? Because they didn't want Joe Biden to run in a primary where he actually had to engage voters and answer questions. That wasn't going to go terribly well. 4 years prior, he didn't do very well in New Hampshire and left the state before the votes were even dry and went down to South Carolina to turn it around. So he and the Democrat powers to be said, we're not going to take part in New Hampshire. Too much work, too much retail politics, and the state is not representative enough, not diverse enough for us, not diverse enough. So, okay, if you're true to your word, why are you coming back here? If New Hampshire wasn't good enough or diverse enough, if our diversity wasn't enough for you to run in the primary here, if we didn't have enough diversity for you and you screwed over New Hampshire, didn't take part in the primary, yes, you were on the ballot, but you did not run here. You bypassed New Hampshire's primary. You blew it off because of, New Hampshire's not diverse of enough state. Why are you coming here? Why have you come back here? Why are you coming here tomorrow? Isn't that a tad hypocritical? Did we all of a sudden become more culturally diverse since the primary? Did we all of a sudden change as a state? All of a sudden you care, you're here. It's like after the State of the Union you came, now you're coming again. Now all of a sudden New Hampshire matters after 2 years no show. What changed in New Hampshire, President Biden, for you to come back? What changed? Is it because we're going into the summer and the leaves are popping? What changed? You're not buying a condominium here in Franconia Notch or the Lakes region. Why all of a sudden the change? Why the love fest now for New Hampshire? And I'll tell you why. I really do believe that I think the White House is looking at these, the CNN, ABC, and New York Times polls that show that Donald Trump, even with all the court stuff in New York, all the Manhattan, all the stuff with Trump in court, Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden in the key battleground states, but more importantly, on the big issues that matter: the economy, inflation, the Southwest border, the U.S. border with the United States and Mexico, out of control immigration situation in the world with Middle East and Ukraine. People are looking at this country, and I think the White House is concerned. So if New Hampshire's 4 electoral college votes are that much in play, it should say something, because really, if you look at New Hampshire, our entire federal delegation is Democrat. Paul Steinhauser says New Hampshire is viewed as a purple state. I would argue most recently, I think it's kind of blue. I think it's kind of blue. I think the only thing red was Governor Chris Sununu and a very thin majority in the New Hampshire State House of Representatives, a 14-10 majority in the state Senate, and a majority in the Executive Council. And Governor Sununu is not running again. So the federal delegation, Senator Shaheen, Hassan, Representative Pappas, and Custer, of course, Custer not running again. Our entire delegation is Democrat. So I think New Hampshire is a little more purple blue than red. So I think Joe Biden's, the fact that he's worried and coming here again tomorrow, I think is telling about where this race is headed in November. All right, going to take a quick break. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Jack, Heath, J Dog on the boards. Back in a few. That's an interesting question, actually, and we're going to know a lot after this fall. I'm not rushing it, but is New Hampshire a purple state, or is it more of a blue state, or is it growing as more of a red state? And of course, New Hampshire independent voters will decide just about everything. I feel, and I may be wrong, because we've seen this trend where New Hampshire likes Democrats in the federal delegation and Republicans controlling kind of the pocketbook or the wallet issues at the state house. But I got to tell you, this next fall is going to be very interesting in the presidential election, the gubernatorial election, maybe a congressional seat or two on really what if New Hampshire tilts more blue, purple than red, purple. And I think it is kind of interesting, and I don't think it's a fluke. President of the United States, think of the process of what you want. The president and his team don't just decide to go to a state randomly. They plan these things and they plan them strategically around the country. And the fact that Joe Biden is all of a sudden in love with New Hampshire again after blowing it off for 2 years, I find it very, very interesting. Michael Graham, he's head of New Hampshire Journal, nhjournal.com. You might agree with me. I thought this New Hampshire should be in the bag for Joe Biden this fall. Why is the president coming back to Nashville to buy a townhome? I don't think he is. The last time, give me a second here. Hold on. We're not going to go back to 20. Okay, well, hold on. Wasn't was it G.W. Bush or was it Ron? President. You said so. Was it Bush? G.W. Bush? I don't. When Bush was first or second? Yeah, that's what I said. George. Yeah, yeah. This is after he got shellacked by McCain in the primary, but won the presidential. Yeah. Well, what do you make of Joe Biden popping back here tomorrow? Yeah. Well, I think it's quite interesting because it's not random, as you know. What else is cooking? NHjournal.com, Michael. But they're not anti-Semitic. They're not anti-Semitic. Israel go to hell, but they're not anti-Semitic. Israel, yeah, 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 but not anti-Semitic, right? Right, right, right. Plus, he was the lead architect of the enriching uranium, trying to make them nuclear. Yeah, and who do you think they would love to use a nuclear weapon against? Yeah. The- Yeah. Yeah. What about all the young women on college campuses? Do they know how they treat women in Tehran? No, no. Do they know? Do they know what the butcher Tehran did to that young woman? I can't think of her name who pushed the dress code years ago, and basically got taken out back. And yeah, yeah, right, yeah, right. Michael Graham and A. Chernow. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I'm wondering. I don't know because a lot of people do not connect dots in our society and country, and I don't want to. It's Memorial Day week, and fortunately, or I'm hoping that a lot of these commencements are finally behind us so I can see some of this kookiness go away in terms of the encampments. But what I'm saying, and there's nothing wrong with peaceful protest, but how about informed protest? And if you are a young woman on these college campuses, and there have been several taking part in the protest and almost pro Hamas and anti Israel, I'm wondering if they really know how women are treated within the Hamas community or Tehran, who supports 100% the financial work of Hamas. I don't know if you knew that, but Tehran, Iran, they are the bank of Hamas. They are the bank of Hezbollah. They're the bank of terrorist groups in Syria. And Michael Graham just mentioned one taking out another vessel. Tehran is the bankroll. They are the finance power, and these terrorist organizations need money to buy weapons, to buy stuff, to hide, to do all the bad stuff they do. They need financial backers, so they are the backers. Tehran is the backer of Hamas, and look at how they treat women in that part of the world, and especially Tehran. Look at how they treat young girls and women. Even the Taliban in Afghanistan still. Look how they treat women. And then you're out there protesting indirectly. You may say, "No, no, no, Jack, I'm not protesting for Tehran or Hamas. I'm protesting to end the killing in Gaza, and I'm protesting for the Palestinian people, and people should not want innocent people to get killed anywhere. But when these protests have gone to the point where you're holding up a sign that is pro Hamas, or an image that is Hamas, or a sign obliterate Israel, or Israel death to Israel, you're going beyond that. You're actually protesting for the terrorist organization that tried to basically kill as many Israeli children and women in the schools and the babies in beds on October 7th as they could, and then ran back into Gaza, starting this war. There was a ceasefire. I don't know if you knew this. There was a ceasefire in Gaza. There was a ceasefire in Gaza before October 7th. So you're blaming Israel for all these deaths, 30,000 plus, 40,000. But there was a ceasefire in Gaza before October 7th. Who started the war? Who went in and did that? Who started that war? Knowing that Israel is going to come in all the way to Rafah to get Hamas militants and terrorists. Who started that? I'm just curious. But when you do this stuff, you're actually a puppet. I don't know if you know that. You're actually a puppet for the bad guys, even if you think you're righteous. Some commentary, 603-228-2080. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an Inch. We come back. Doug Tangden with some economic thoughts. At least the price of gas is going down. Back on the Pulse of an Inch in a moment. And J Dog, this is pretty cool as we bring in Doug Tangden, World Market Advisors, with an economic update. This is important because here we go. And this is one of our sponsors from last Wednesday's Make 12 Hours Count 12-hour radiothon, my 10th annual for Make 12 Hours Count, part of Veterans Count, part of Easter Seals. Jamie from the Great Bay Spa and Sauna side in Portsmouth are doing it again. And this is a great contest only with us. You can go to the Pulse of an Age, nominate a veteran. And I think of the young couple, he was an Army guy. I think he was airborne when we did the show there. It was 2 years ago, and he won this beautiful, I guess you call it hot tub and spa, beautiful with all the propulsion stuff for water therapy. Because a lot of people don't know they're not only relaxing, but a lot of these you can do them different speeds and powers. And if your back goes out, Jada, a couple weeks ago, your back was thrown out from working out. I I gotta tell you go sit in those things with the jet propulsion, work in that area a couple days, and you're gonna be good to go. And of course, athletes use them, but we're looking for veterans who have some wear and tear on their frames. From in this case, the young, I can't remember his name, but the young couple, he had done, I think it might have been between 300 and 500 jumps, parachute jumps. And when you meet some of these folks that do a lot of for example, we just had in the studios the other day, Tony Negron, para jumper for the Air Force, the SEALs, the 82nd Airborne Rangers. A lot of the folks that do a lot of the parachute jumping every time, even if it's perfect landing with the chutes, there's compression on the spine, compression on your knees. You kind of, right. Well, Rick Kaiser, who's been on the show, or his book recently about his times as a head of SEAL Team 6 as a Navy SEAL, 2,501 jumps. And you wonder, I mean, here we get to be my stage, and sometimes you get up out of a chair after working out, or and you get up in the morning, you move it a little slowly. Imagine all those jumps. But what's really cool about Jamie and the team at Great Bay Spa and Sauna in Portsmouth is they're going to be from this contest that you can go to our Pulse of an Age, no complications, no red tape, nominate a veteran in your life of someone who can benefit from really the medicinal value of these hot tubs and spas. They're not just comfortable and relaxing like when you're traveling and you get in the hot tub at the end of a day or you're stressful. The brand new ones, and that's what this is. They're not only beautiful, but they are therapeutic. They are medicinal. And you start firing those jets at different angles on your legs, your back, your neck, the cervical disc, your lumbar. So if you know a veteran who's got some wear and tear on their frame and their body from a lot of years in the service, that's who we're looking for. And I can't wait to be there when we have that veteran walk in. And I don't have all the notes in front of me. I got to tell you right now, these hot tubs that they can choose from, let's just put it this way. They're more than a few $1,000. I'll leave it at that. They are beautiful. They're wonderful, and they can really make a difference. So go to the Pulse of an Age, nominate a veteran. Nominate a veteran. J-Dog, going to check in with Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors. And Doug, I hope you had a good weekend. Good morning, Doug. Were you? What were you doing? What were you doing up there? Well, that was sarcastic. I'm sorry. Plenty of good snow up there in the bowl. I mean, You know, I haven't done it since I was young, and, I remember my dad would carry most of the stuff. I was quite young the first time I did Tuckerman's, and he passed when I was young, so I had to be, like, 10 or 11, and that was one of the bonuses. I got pictures. It was a beautiful day, just wearing, like, a turtleneck, no sweater. The sun was bright. People were having picnics, but the good thing is I had a pair of old blackhead, juniors. I think they were called, like, junior 60s, were metal. They were heavy, and he you remember those skis? But I remember when they were brand new, and there was either that or Rosignol's, right? And, yeah, yeah, and he carried him, and we got the ski down. It was just wonderful. All right, Doug, what's going on? I just noticed the only good thing I'm seeing is some lower gas prices, but I gotta tell you, Doug, again, my conversations, maybe it's where I live in the seacoast. Each weekend, I seem to be bumping into more and more people saying, "Can you believe the prices of houses around here? How does a young person buy their way? How can they afford anything right now in this area for it? There's nothing under $1 million." Yeah, and I don't think it's getting I don't think there's any change on the horizon, at least what I'm seeing. Yeah, and wasn't it interesting? Because Doug, I'm sorry, I got this pesky memory. That maybe that's one good thing that we were just talking about junior 60s, those skis. And it's funny. I remember where I got them. You're going to laugh at this. You've probably skied Sunday River in Bethel. There was the Kaylee ski shop right at the bottom of Cascade, that little ski shop on the left. And my mother's family was from West Bethel, Maine. So my uncle ran the ski school. My grandfather, Roland Nealon, ran the mixing bowl lift as a kid. My aunts worked in the ski shop and the lodge. So we were like family on that mountain. And when you needed a buck or two to go in and get some French fries, you could. Yeah, and you know what your parents said, by the way, get out there and ski. I don't care how cold it is. These things are expensive. And by the way, Doug, just a fond memory. My grandmother Nealon would sit back in I call it the farm in West Bethel. We'd all be gone all day. She probably loved the quiet, and she'd be sitting there, making all kinds of baking stuff. But she'd be sewing the names and all my cousins and the mittens. Those they were kind of a different leather material, not as shiny. It was like a rough leather that were expensive gloves. Your helmet. She would put all the name tags in the back of a coat because in case it was lost, that was an expensive item for families, to be able to buy a ski parker or gloves, right? Remember those days of the name tag when you went to school, like Doug Tengden, this is your blue, I don't know, whatever, ski parker, whatever. I bet you. Oh, I wonder if that's why I saw a lot of Quebec license plates this weekend on the seacoast. Man, probably the same. Yeah, well, we'll see where it all goes. We'll see where it all goes. Thank you, Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors. I'm glad you did you get some sun up there, and you get a little bit of a. When you came out of Pinkham, or what's up? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. All right, Doug. All right, thanks, Doug. Good, fun stuff. Thank you for the Mother Nature update as well. All right, coming up as well on the show, speaking of the seacoast, the Portsmouth Brewery, the couple, Peter and Joanne, are not the owners of the Portsmouth Brewery, right downtown Portsmouth, if you know that area, the Portsmouth Brewery, they got the big, like, beer mug outside, they made the beer, the restaurant, they own that building. They're not gonna they had a water flooding issue in their building, they're not gonna rebuild and, reopen their iconic downtown brew pub. Heavily damaged last summer when a upstairs sprinkler main, I think, broke. They're gonna be selling the building, but we're gonna hear from them, the owners, their memories of, I think it was almost 3 decades. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an Age. Friday, live at Gino's as well in Portsmouth this Friday before we head into Memorial Day. Getting warm by Wednesday. Back in a moment.